and we'll, guys, if you want to take another group shot of the guys, we'll do it at the end. But no, we'll get underway. And sorry about the confusion. I thought the Fonz was next, but instead it's us talking about the Infinity Gauntlet. And I should mention that Jim and Roy Thomas will be doing a Marvel Cosmic panel tomorrow that I will also be moderating. So I'm very excited about that. But of course, we're doing the Infinity Gauntlet right now. My name's John Siuntres. I host a podcast called Word Balloon, where I get to interview these people. That's quite all right. I'm sure my phone will be going off at some point as well. It's all good. No problem. But no, let's, obviously the Infinity War of Avengers, big thing, and it really started with this incredible story. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about that. Yeah, they did something with your story, Jim. But no, this is great. I'm really excited to be talking to these guys who are so important with the Infinity Saga and so many stories. So I'm going to start with the gentleman next to me, inker extraordinaire on so many classic great stories, and the guy that really held the continuity of the Infinity Saga together as a changed artist, Joe Rubenstein, everybody. I'll jump over to the artist who has been doing the majority of the Infinity Saga and a lot of other great Marvel works, the great Ron Lim. And then again, these guys are all responsible for a good deal of Marvel Cosmic, but certainly the writers' contributions speak for themselves. Jim Starlin. So, Jim, as Jim encourages more applause, which I understand. It all starts with Thanos, though, Jim.
Give him the knee.
So tell us about the creation of Thanos, and it started with Iron Man, correct?
Oh, Iron Man 55. It started before then. It started in junior college. I took a psychology class, and we had a guest speaker who came in and talked about the Freudian concepts of Thanos and Eros, the lighter and darker sides of human nature. I latched onto the darker side, of course. I'm working on the lighter side now. Alan Davis and I are working on that now. But I came to Marvel, and Thanos was part of my portfolio that got me my first job, which was a 5-page love story that involved Tom the truck driver, Dick the dude, and Wendy the waitress. Alliteration was big back then. Yeah. Basically, when George Tuska, who was the regular penciler on Iron Man at the time, had to go in for an operation, Roy Thomas asked me to come in with Mike Friedrichs and do a fill-in issue, and that's when I pulled out Thanos and Drax and put them into the book, and then we did the second issue with Steve Gerber, and Stan hated it and fired both me and Gerber. So it was inauspicious at the beginning. It worked out okay in the end.
Have you had a chance to remind Stan in recent years? You fired me on Thanos.
He's fired me a couple of times. I'm sure even he remembers at this point.
Talk to me.
I have a question for Mr. Starlin. Did you want to be a writer who drew, somebody who drew other people's stories, or did you always conceive of yourself as doing the whole package?
I started up, long story. I'll keep it short. I started off as a penciler. I wanted to be a penciler. I always wanted to tell stories, and so I contributed to the plots right from the start. Somebody asked me to fill in a couple pages of an Iron Man story, which I drew, and then the script came in and I looked at it, and it was Happy Hogan stepping out of an office and kicking over a trash can, and his line was, "Look what that woman has made me become, a litter bug." And I thought, I think I can do better than this. Then I really enjoyed writing because I realized that you can write 25,000 cavalrymen charged over the hill and not have to draw it. So that sort of got me into the business of writing.
What was, both Joe and Ron, what were your first Marvel Cosmic stories?
Comic stories?
Yeah. Well, the Cosmic.
Mine was on Surfer, actually. Because I was working on Sci-Force for the New Universe before that, and then my editor was Craig Anderson. And I guess Washington Union surfer, and they're like,
Marshall Rogers?
Marshall Rogers.
Okay.
Looking for new artists. Yeah. So I said, can I try out? And like, yeah, sure, try out. I didn't come for like a year from Marvel at that time, so I was like, all right, I tried out. I think I would get it. Then he called me up and says, we got the book. What? I'm not ready for this.
How long have you been answering?
About 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, as long as you want forever, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you on our Marvel Cosmic panel tomorrow?
No.
Oh,
No,
man.
no.
Yeah, man. Well, again, I don't want to like blow any commissions for you or anything, but if you've got time, I think you should be. Joe, how about your Marvel Cosmic involvement?
Well, I think firstly, your first job was I was inker.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. And my first cosmic job was Avengers Annual number 7, 2-in-1 annual over this guy.
Yeah.
So my very first Marvel job was when I was 19 years old. And Mr. Starlin, who I used to think was Jim Starlin. Somebody said, oh,
Jack's brother.
it's true. I was at a party, said, who's that guy? He said, it's Jim Starlin. Jim Starlin? I like his work. And, but so I'm so glad you're here for multiple reasons. One of which is, you walked up to me at a party and went, you want to do Avengers Annual? I went, yeah, sure. Why didn't you ask me to do it? It's like, I was hanging out, I was 19.
Probably drunk.
Okay.
No, I'm sure I studied hard work up in continuity or something like that, and I thought you'd do good.
Thank you. I mean,
But I probably was drunk.
Unlike the altered state you're in right now. Okay. But it's, you know, it's like, I was thrilled because there were all these artists at Marvel I was chomping to work with, like John Siuntres, G. Cole, and I was DC. I started working at DC when I was 17 years old. So I was doing that stuff, and then Jim walks up to me, and it's like so many things in life. It's like, yeah, sure, okay. And then you look back, it's like, complete pivotal moment in your life, everything changed, you know? And I mean, I turned to Steve Leila, who was an inker on Jim's work and a wonderful artist, and I went, how come you didn't make it? He went, I don't know, because I was busy. That was that. And the funny thing is, over the next 30 years, they reprinted that thing like 10 times. Like every time you turned it around, there was another reprint.
That's the thing that got Thanos into the Marvel movie universe. Josh Brolin, that was one,
Josh Whedon.
Whedon, thank you. Says that was one of his favorite comics when he was a kid.
Wow. That's excellent. That's amazing. What's, and I'm going to probably ask this question again tomorrow when we're talking Marvel Cosmic in general, but I'm really interested in that great period in the 70s when there was more speculation that Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Däniken, that Däniken period, and all these different things of, you know, what was the mystery of the pyramids, where did aliens do it, and all the cave drawings of what looked like, you know, alien astronauts and things like that.
There was a guy named Ralph. I have it from
He's like, no, I honestly, like, it seemed like that stuff was in the zeitgeist in a different way than, certainly I know Kirby was so blown away by 2001 and things like that. That also came from the NASA realities of space exploration. And I wondered if, as the mythology of what the cave drawings showed us of the Egyptians and how people try to spin that into sci-fi, if that stuff was ever in your guys' minds.
No, my intake was more like Will Wright and Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan stories.
Oh, really?
You know, I wanted to do sort of mysticism and science fiction, and I knew what the light years were, but I really didn't want to get the science into it. I wanted to get the story into it, and those were the kind of things I wanted to do, was more sort of spiritual mind-blowing. I mean, all my characters go on trips when they go on story. Captain Marvel became a warrior who became a holy man. Warlock became a holy man who became a paranoid schizophrenic suicide. So they change.
That's excellent. That's great. And seriously, folks, if you want to chime in, because really this is a great opportunity to talk very much cosmically and stuff. Sir?
Why did you decide to stop the character of Warlock? They movie had like a character arc.
Why did you decide to stop the character of Warlock?
Or something. I saw a story where It's like you went to paradise and at the end of one of your sagas, it's like,
Well, the reason I ended my run on Warlock was twofold. One, I had a spat with Marvel editorial, and two, for the first time, and it may be the only time in comic book history, a number of books had to be canceled up at Marvel because they ran out of paper. War of the Worlds, Warlock, and I think Luke Cage all got canceled at that point because the Canadian supplier just didn't have any paper for them. So a number of the low-hanging fruit got snipped and tossed out.
Wow. Around what year? Early 80s?
No, this is 70s. This is when I was working on Warlock.
Okay.
It's just after I quit, this all happened.
Okay. And yeah, and then was this the period where Dreadstar and all that stuff came, or was that much later?
I think I went over and did Superman for a while first. And,
Okay.
well, maybe Dreadstar did come in that direction. Because I was working, I'm a little hazy on the things, and plus I've been working on Dreadstar for the last 3 months. So
Outstanding. Good to hear.
Fixing up the things were a massive reprint.
That's fantastic.
But I'm really bad at years.
Okay, man. It's all
They'd
good.
have to ask somebody else.
What's the name of the character that's all guy with the
Syzygy.
Syzygy?
He was.
One day Jim Starlin walks up to me and says, I need you to pose for me, but here, get in your underwear and put this towel on. And,
He made a mistake of coming into my studio.
yeah. And you know, I couldn't afford to pay him that much to take the pictures. But there's a whole set of me going, and I mean, in the pictures, my character's like a generous 5'5". And then when he gets exploded, what do I go, 6'4" or something?
You're up to 70.
So
And I don't use you for the reference after that.
what, you can like, all right, so if you buy the Price, which is the black and white painted origin of Dreadstar, I'm the guy walking around with a beard and hair, and there's a woman in it named Sister Marion, who was my girlfriend at the time. Hilarious. So I point that out to people that I used to look like that.
A little known fact, which I haven't really brought up too often, was that Syzygy was supposed to be a black character. And I actually had somebody coming in that day that Joe showed up, but he couldn't make it. And at the last moment, because of the things, Syzygy became a white guy because
Joe is.
my model didn't show up. I was working with all photo reference at that point. Yeah.
That's excellent. Now, Sunday, we're going to do a Robin panel and get into Jim's run at DC and the death of Jason Todd and all of that stuff.
It'll be gruesome.
Oh, well, I look forward to the story. So if you're here all weekend, you want to check it out Sunday afternoon. But let's get back to the event itself, the Infinity Gauntlet, and what started multiple Infinity sagas and stories. Well, first of all, what brought you back to Marvel?
I had killed Robin.
So Marvel took notice of it.
No, DC.
Or they were bad.
It was their best-selling book that year.
Yeah.
And as a reward, they dried up all my business because they suddenly realized they had all these lunch boxes and pajamas with Robin on it. And somebody had to get blamed for this. And so, well...
You're not going to drop Jenny on Sunday, are you? You're going to...
No, Danny I bragged on this enough.
Okay, good.
Because he went on all the talk shows when the first thing came out and said, oh, yeah, my idea. I thought it was great. And then when it came down to the shit hitting the fan, I got it. And so I went over to Marvel and started on the Silver Surfer. And, every time I get fired, it works into something much better.
Isn't it interesting to the fans that both got canceled because we ran out of paper? Jim Starlin goes to Marvel because somebody says, don't do that again. I mean, it's like, you don't know about all the currents and all the politics that happen. You just buy the comic book and wonder, how come Robin's not on the Silver Surfer anymore?
Right.
Yeah. There might. I mean, as collectors, without mentioning names, would you like to know who embezzled?
Yes.
And who was a horrible human being?
Can I leave the room before you start talking?
I know, but at the same time, it's like, there's, you know, like, all right, so I'm a painter, and one of my big influences is Degas. And Degas was a raving anti-Semite, not Jewish. So when I look at the stuff, I kind of separate that from it, you know? So can you pick up a comic book by your favorite artist and go, oh, I heard about this guy. He's not a nice man.
Yes.
Can you separate? I don't know.
Vinnie Coletta. Vinnie Coletta drew beautiful women. And I know he was a scoundrel and kind of mean.
Scoundrel.
That's a good word. All right, there's one, you know, trying to, this might be a couple. But no, but that's what, honestly, and it would erase Kirby's stuff, and you know, and
Hey, you want it done by Thursday? I can get it done by Thursday. Okay, but these people back here, my background guy, those are backgrounds. You ain't those. Okay, Vinny is very proud that if you said, can I have 100 pages by Wednesday, they were in. He was very proud that he got the publishers to save money because it worked out well.
I wonder, Ron, if in fact you coming in, because the Infinity Gauntlet started with Perez,
Yeah.
and then went to you.
Yeah.
If there, because I know, is everyone aware of the phrase "the crusty bunkers"? And Joe, I don't know if you were a crusty
I was a
bunker.
crusty bunker.
Joe's crusty.
But-
I don't know.
Right.
Okay, there you go. So
But
were you basically, and actually, Joe and Jim, and explain what crusty bunkers were.
Crusty Bunkers were a group of artists who would meet up at Continuity, and usually they gathered to help Alan Weiss meet his... Yeah, but Alan was the biggest. Every time he had a 6-page job, there was a Crusty Bunkers version.
And they look good. Yeah. By the way, when Jim said continuity, it means Continuity Associates, which was Neil Adams'
Neil
studio,
Adams,
which was Neil being one of the great comic book artists and a groundbreaker. He had studios in Manhattan, so whenever you handed in a job, because you had to live in the tri-state area in those days, no FedEx, no computer. So you got done at DC, done at Marvel, you went by continuity. You saw what Neil had, and maybe he got, like Jeff Jones walked in one day and went, hey Jeff, you want to make a panel? He went, all right. And he had the panel, and that was cool. You got Jeff Jones saying something. And sometimes people went, all right, I can take 3 or 4 pages and I'll be back on Thursday. And Neil was the predominant look of the book. He would do the big heads and the big figures. And the jobs got done.
So that's the crusty bunkers would get things done by the deadline. And honestly, that is the fascination I have on both sides of looking at the art and reading the stories, but also knowing the background stories. No, that is part of the interesting thing, because this is deadline commercial art. It has to get done. It has to be there. And it's really, guys, what do you think, honestly, all three of you, as people who had to work under those deadlines? Whereas today, artists do get the license of, hey, you know something, artist X had a bad month. Okay, we're gonna postpone the book and let him finish it. Well, some do. Some get that treatment.
Well, I know that Brian Bolden took like 10 months to draw the last issue of Camelot 3000.
Yep.
Which is unbelievable.
Yep.
But the jobs I get, look, I was doing a job when DC was moving to Burbank, they did this Convergence series.
Yes.
And they said, I had my own book called World's Finest. And then they needed me for 2 late books. And I went, okay, can you, and you know, the computers have made life harder, not easier. It's like, can you get us a page by 4 o'clock? Okay, fine. It's just, all right, can you get us one by 7? Okay, fine. It's just, we really need another page by midnight. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You know, and so I didn't know people could actually take their time these days, because it'll wear you down. The thing with comic books is, they're a lot of fun. It's great. It's a childhood fantasy. It's what you always wanted to do. It's better than working for a living. Oh yeah, and can you do 10 pages by Monday?
I was from Detroit in the assembly line, so I easily.
So Ron, both as you know, today's deadline thing, but also getting into how you got the job, because again, it started with George Perez,
Right.
and then all of a sudden it was co-drawn by you, and
Right.
Joe, of course, doing the inking, and then by issue 3, it was you till the end,
Yeah.
and then the subsequent series.
Well, I mean, I worked with Jim long stuff, leading up to Gauntlet. And so, I was a little disappointed not being able to do Gauntlet, but I understood because it's George Perez, right? I mean, he's an artist like
Sure.
So, but when Craig Anderson, the editor, called me and said, you want to finish it, you know, the series, I'm like, well, heck yeah! So yeah, so I mean,
What
just
happened?
not so much.
What
Yeah, what's
happened?
the idea, guys?
You know,
I don't know, to this day, I don't know the true story.
Story I heard, he quit to become an actor.
Really?
Yeah, he had been doing some off-Broadway stuff, and he quit. At least that's what he told Craig, and Craig told me.
He played both Lionels on the Jeffersons.
So that's all I know about it. I've never actually asked him about it. I haven't seen him all that many times since then.
Yeah.
He's usually been in the crowd. And
No, I was in Cassie, that's it, that's, yeah, I don't know.
Well, the guy kept it, I was just gonna say, you really have to hand it to Joe as the anchor, because the look of the book, and honestly, to prepare for this and everything, I was rereading it and stuff. I didn't notice any sort of difference whatsoever.
Well, let me ask you, Ron, did you do anything to try and blend in?
No, I mean,
George's style at all?
No, it definitely wasn't George, but
Yeah.
did you say, all right, well, I gotta draw this version of it?
well, I looked at his page for reference, just like things in continuity correct.
And did you feel the need to put in more details like George did, or did it not?
No,
Because you always comfortable?
Yeah, no, I just didn't know.
Okay.
I don't want to
thanks.
change it.
Wow.
Well, like, I worked with George on a Surfer Superman story, and he just loves that detail. He just loves it. He's like, I asked him, I said, that, like, he drew Dr. Strange's house. I was like, dude, there's so much stuff in there. He just, why do you do that? He's like, because I love it. He just loves running.
But in those days, you got a George Perez page, and like, this is going to be a lot of work. Now, it's like an after-dinner mint compared to Travis Schwartz and all these guys who George set the standard. Like, I'm not going to let him outdo my details. You know,
It's not a problem.
okay.
Any other questions? Sir?
How did the Infinity Gauntlet evolve from the original Soul Stones?
That's a good question. Yes, how did the
Soul
Infinity
Jazz.
Gauntlet evolve from the original Soul Stones?
Okay, I was raised in a Catholic family, and first few years of schooling, parochial elementary school, sister of crazy out of their head nuns were my teachers. Most of them were John Birchers. So somewhere along the line, once I started working on coming back to the Surfer and working on Thanos again, some of that Catholicism crept back into my system. I thought I'd worked it all out with Warlock, but I apparently hadn't. And it occurred to me, you know, we're talking to God as this all-powerful, benevolent entity out there. I wonder if he wasn't. I wonder if he was a crazy son of a gun who just wanted to do whatever whim hit him at that time. And so I had thrown the soul gems into the Avengers story that you inked, and they were just sitting around, and then you and Engelhardt had used them with
Oh, yeah,
Elders.
yeah.
And so they were sitting there, and I thought, well, those are the 6 aspects of life, basically. If he becomes masters of those things, well, he becomes omnipotent.
Right.
And so that's where he came from, basically, blame it on the nuns.
Certainly great. And how?
Well, obviously not a perfect representation. What was it like to see your creation come to life on the big screen?
Well, it's like you said, it's far removed. For one thing, he's got pupils. I'm never going to get used to that. But basically, you know, there's thousands of people between me and it. Maybe I was the gem, and maybe there's some scenes that I recognize from out of the books and that. But they did an incredible job creating that movie and that character. I mean, Brolin must have sat there and scoured these comic books to look to see how he would move. He moved perfectly. You know, it was just, they did, everything worked just perfectly on this thing to all these things coming together. Kevin Feige is obviously an obsessed, crazy madman who will not let the movie out of the studio until like 5 minutes before the premiere because he's making changes up until the last moment. The Russos were, they just wanted, they had the story and they knew with McFeely and Marcus, they just had to knock things around and put it into this universe and adjust to the fact that there weren't certain characters And, you know, I'm just blown away by the process they did. I couldn't be happier. You know, I'm very proud to be associated with it. You know.
Ron, do you want to say?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to hear what both of you guys think of the movie.
Oh yeah, I love the movie first of all. But yeah, their version of Thanos, I was a bit worried. I mean, up until that point, I saw him kind of laying out the plan out of the gym. That's it, right? But yeah, to see him fleshed out was pretty amazing. I was blown away.
Well, you know, when I saw the first Avengers movie and it was ending, and I thought, who could they get to reunite? I went, Thanos. I went, ooh, I'm right. You know, but I mean, I've been associated, not really associated, but a lot of the movies, I've done a lot of different books, so I can identify with the Captain America movie and the Daredevil movie and all that sort of stuff. And a couple of Wolverine's back was actually my Wolverine miniseries in Japan, except it had very little to do with the series itself, which kind of disappointed me.
Yeah.
But when I was watching, when I was watching the Thanos Avengers thing, one thing I kept thinking was, why do I keep taking off this helmet? You know, it's a cool helmet. But I thought, this was the really first time I sat there and went, wow.
Why didn't we do that in the book? Why did we need that armory?
Yeah, right. But I looked at it and went, wow, it's my comic book. I saw Thanos beating up on the Avengers. I went, took 43 years, but that's how long ago it was. You know, no, 41 years because I was 19. So yeah.
I came at it from a different angle than anybody else because they invited me down to the set of the next movie. Well, before the first one was out, I thought I was not going to learn anything, but it turns out that non-disclosure agreement I had to sign when I came in, all of them had done that a year and a half ago, and they were just dying to tell somebody what they were doing. So I immediately found out everything, so I knew about why they took the helmet out. I said, gee, that's a good idea. What happened, like about 2 weeks before the movie came out, though, they told me that they had a half hour of the Thanos backstory that they were going to have to cut out because it was going to be a 3-hour movie. And I had just been on a plane where I watched the Justice League movie, and I thought, oh God, you take out Thanos' backstory, it's going to be the Justice League movie. And I was horrified. So I show up at this premiere, and I'm thinking of nothing but Bob Kane. Now remember the Batman series in the 1960s? It was the antithesis of everything Bob Kane had done, but he was getting a piece of it, so I had to say, I loved it. And all I could think of, I'm going to hate this movie. And I'm going to have to get up there in public and go, I love it. And I just wasn't sure I could do it. Then the movie, we went to see the premiere, and I went, woo! I got that ball.
Yeah, you know, it is, and again, rereading, well, just Thanos in general, the love affair with death.
Yeah.
And again, I understand NDAs. We don't know what's coming in the second movie, but it's too bad that there isn't room for that.
Well, I can talk about this because other people have talked about it openly. The Marvel universe, cinematic universe, is not ready for the abstract entities yet, like Eternity and Mistress Death. I imagine that's going to change as more of these Doctor Strange movies come out.
Hopefully.
That's why they decided not to use Mistress Death.
Okay.
And that's one of our silver surfer things for our motivation.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So, yeah, there was reasons for what they were doing. You know, they were working a lot of different moving parts into this box. 19 movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
You know, and basically, for what they had to work with, I think they did fine.
How many of all of us have friends that aren't into it like we are, and said, you know, I hear this Infinity War is really cool. Should I see it? And it's like, no, because it's chapter 20. Or chapter 10. You won't. I mean, there's a level of appreciation that's not going to be there. And I honestly, it's almost like a lab experiment of, oh, your mom went and saw Infinity War. What did she think? Did she understand what was happening, or was she just like?
You're like a sea block.
I've actually talked to a number of people who have never been to a Marvel movie before, but went to see it. And they
it's great. Okay. Right. By the way,
I'm like this with the
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's great. It's great. It's an action thing, and you know. But on a tangent, when Jim said that he went down to see the set, I was reminded, Len told me that he went down to see a Wolverine movie being filmed, and he said it was the scene where Hugh Jackman gets out of bed and stands naked looking out at the window. And he went, I've seen Hugh Jackman's ass more than I ever wanted. There's a lot of people who will disagree with me on that.
I like that you called me a C blocker. That's fantastic. I appreciate that. That's
The only person who appreciated less than Len was the makeup artist, probably.
The fluffer, please. All right, we'll leave it at that. I'm sorry. Sir, we'll get you next week. Go ahead, sir.
Dracula.
Yeah, Dracula.
The point that you brought up about death, that was actually part of my favorite part of the whole Thanos mythos and the Infinity Gauntlet, and how he's not just someone who wants to destroy everything, but he's doing it for a purpose to impress and capture his lady love. And the fact that it was missing in the movie, that was such a big thing that kind of caught me, and now I know why. So...
Well, there's also the fact that they've made so much money off Thanos, and Josh Brolin is lobbying to do more Thanos.
Wow.
I mean, he started off going, it's a one shot, I'm going to do one shot. And then 2 months later, can I get the Eternals? So I think there's a chance that Mystery Staffs will appear down the line. Yeah.
And it's such a big part of the stories you've done with him, so...
It's Sam and Diane from Cheers.
Go ahead.
I have a question based on, one thing I found with your two characters, Thanos and Warlock, is they have very distinct word balloons, that they've always been lettered with a weird word balloon. In your mind, how do you think each of those characters sound? Because they look different, so obviously you're not intending them to sound like regular Joes, so.
Which characters are you talking about?
Thanos and Adam Warlock.
Oh.
How the balloons were always styled very differently from the regular models.
Okay, I think Adam Warlock sounds and looks like Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
I was almost certain when I saw that Peter Dinklage was in the Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And they had the IMDb without the credit underneath which character to play. I was sure he was going to be Pym.
That's true. Yeah, no kidding.
Heroes, I've never given any thought to. I'll have to give some thought to that one. And I got to tell you, Brolin was not on my radar at all as Thanos. I was picturing somebody who, I thought it was just going to be a voiceover part. So I was picturing like a post-cancerous Arnold Schwarzenegger. Idris Elba, I thought would have been terrific at it. But, I can't imagine anybody but Brolin at this point. And it's not because he hugged me.
Sir.
I know there's going to be like a Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel movie. Is there going to be any reference to the original blonde?
Marvel.
Marvel?
Will there be a Marvel reference in the Captain Marvel?
I understand. Well, I've heard that Jude Law is playing, inside IMDb, it's listed as Walter Lang, which was Marvel in the original comic books, but everybody else keeps referring to him as Marvel, so apparently he's in there.
Wow.
Yeah, I know I was going to just say one thing. I love, they call it the first Marvel graphic novel. I love the death of Captain Marvel.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reason why I like that is because my poor father passed away from cancer, and that line at the end is so unfair. Yeah.
That prompted me to, that's the same reason I wrote the story.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into the death of Marvel tomorrow when we talk Marvel costumes. Absolutely. So from an art standpoint, guys, Ron and Joe, was it tougher when it is this kind of big epic and there are dozens of characters and stuff?
Is it more difficult to draw than regular comic?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's so many characters in there.
Right.
They keep track of everybody. The hardest part is keeping track of costumes they're wearing at that current time.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask.
I kept drawing different thing, and also they came out, they put a helmet on his head. I was like, what?
Well, that's right. That's when he was
He
scarred.
got scarred by Wolverine.
Right.
So I was like,
Right. Well, and the Hulk in that brown outfit,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
this is intelligent Hulk.
Yeah.
So
all that stuff is just more technical stuff. Just get costume reference. Other than that.
Well, I mean, I count that my pencil's actually getting it right. But
Joe?
right. But when I was doing the official handbook of the Marvel encyclopedia over the course of 20 years. And I would get this character day with all this busy costume. I'd go look at the reference, and invariably it was designed by George Barris.
Yeah.
Did Jim draw Thanos for Ohio?
Oh, no. Oh, you got ripped off. We used a drawing of yours that was traced. So I don't know. I don't know if you got ripped off. But, you know, as
We'll call CB.
No,
CB's here, we'll let
So one with the big head, the head's too big, right?
did you? I think it's the one that came like out of the Avengers Annual. But as I thought about it years later, I suddenly realized they kept giving me photostats of pencilers' work to trace in ink, and I'm like, these guys weren't getting paid.
Wow.
You guys were getting ripped off.
Wow.
No, I think.
All right, well, I think
I mean, I'm the first one to knock Marvel, but
yeah.
in this particular case, I don't think they actually did.
Well, I'll tell you one story, and I know Jim Shooter could be a very controversial figure, big one stories, and he's always been a good guy to me. There was a movie called Labyrinth starring David Bowie, right? And they did a comic book adaptation by the incredibly gorgeous, wonderful John Siuntres, and they were doing a coloring book of it. And Jim said, "So how are you doing this?" He says, "Oh, we're going to trace the pencils. We don't have to pay anybody." And he went, "No, you're going to pay John Siuntres." You know, so my experience is he was looking out for people. Because you know what? They took, my official handbook of the Marvel Universe, they took it and did 500-page role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I found this thing, and I went up to Marvel and went, "Can I get some money for this?" And they went, "No, it's not in your contract." Now in those days, they used to pay an inker like $23 a page for reprint. So now we're talking a couple $1,000, right? Sure. But no, it's not your contract. "Well, can you give me $1 just as sort of a token?" "No, we got you."
How about a copy of the game?
Every Wolverine T-shirt I've ever owned, I bought at Target.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So was it an easy pitch for the Infinity Gauntlet? And who was the editor-in-chief?
Craig Anderson was the editor, and was it Tom?
The
Tom
Falcon.
at that point, and Tom didn't pay any attention to it. I mean, Marvel was owned by a Perlmutter Group at that point, and they were trying to squeeze every cent they could out of your readerships. Yeah, I'm a writer. I just made that up. So this was a time when the X-Men, each X-Men had his own book, or at least a miniseries and that. So anything that sold, they wanted more of. And we did well on the Surfer.
Yeah.
The sales went up, and they said, we wanted a spin-off, so we did the Thanos Quest. And the initial sales on the Thanos Quest were so good that they wanted something more before even that came out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because you were still penciling up all those damn heads and at the end.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They said, okay, we're on to the next one. So I think that was possibly one of the reasons they did do George, because you were still busy on the Thanos Quest.
Oh, was I? Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah, because it came out.
This was
right?
How fast?
Yeah.
So it was, basically they wanted, the Infinity Gauntlet happened because Marvel couldn't figure out a way to pick you up and shake you and throw you. So they hired me to do that.
Any other questions? Oh, sir, absolutely.
I was wondering how you write such a complex character like Thanos, because there's so much to him.
Well, he's developed over 40 some odd years. Basically, every time I go back to him, I want to add another little facet to him. And every time I sit down and write him, I sit down and write everything I've done beforehand. So it's not like I got this encyclopedic knowledge in my head. It's there on for me to go look back at. And I work on 3x5 cards to set out the story. So, I structure a story like a person builds a house. You begin frame first, and then you start doing the elaborations from there. And basically, he's somebody who I really love. It breaks my heart I'm not going to be doing any more of his stories. But, I had a lot of fun with him. He was a great villain, hero, complex, and he was the kind of character I would have wanted to read. that's basically how he came about.
But Jim, when you started to draw Thanos hanging out with Mister's death, she wasn't a girl yet. You started to like build up her chest as the stories went.
I've had that, I think it was the second issue of Captain Marvel, and I designed it up and did this way to figure, and I went, who the hell is that? And I think I did go back and actually, she kept getting more feminine as she went along.
But you always knew she was going to be Mister's death when you, from almost the beginning, or
Maybe by the end of the issue, by the time I figured it out.
and within all of your years of writing, you never thought, all right, I gotta get Thanos here, but that series, I don't have enough time, so maybe 5 years down the line, I'm gonna get this aspect of him out. You didn't have it even that.
Oh, I might have some ideas, but most of the time it's, just, oh, that'd be cool. A lot of, I find creativity works best when it's spontaneous. Captain Marvel 25, there's a creature in it called Eon. He's sort of like this floating thing with an eye and a face on one side.
Right.
Some hairline types. He came about because I was coming back from a party, maybe a little bit inebriated.
So there's a theme.
This was in New York City. And I was stopping at a light, and there was a bag of garbage. There was a garbage truck at the time, and there was a paper bag over by one of the stores, and it had a grease stain. Something was seeping on it. And I sort of looked at the grease stain, and I went, that's a really fascinating shape. And I immediately ran home and drew it up, and that's where Ian came from. So I like things that kind of happen.
So the hair was asparagus.
Later on, there were some broccoli guys.
Right.
More like there was some.
But I'm still intrigued about your idea of yourself. Are you a writer who draws, or an artist who writes, or is there no difference in your minds?
Well, see, and I blew my hand with my hand.
Well, no, you can't.
Later.
Yeah, but were you an artist who wrote?
I never gave that any thought.
Right.
It was just something I did. I'm a storyteller.
Right. Okay.
Just whatever aspect.
So it's just like when Harrison Ford says, I'm a movie maker, he thinks about, besides my acting, all the other things, because he's involved in the totality as you, when you do your story.
Yeah, my mind tends to meander around to things other than that. That's too specific and too concrete.
Okay.
There's
Richard.
I was just, I'm just a little confused about, you created Thanos, but doesn't Marvel own it, and can't they just, why are they allowing you to develop the character? Why don't they just rip it away and let them run it?
They have.
They have.
The last couple.
Pay attention, please.
Nothing against the writers and artists who got the jobs, but no, it's obviously I'm sure
It's
that's
a work for hire job. I mean, I got a little bit better deal than most on the work for hire thing because there was some lost paperwork. And so when Thanos showed up at the end of the Avengers movie, Marvel and I had to come to terms again on stuff. And, that's why he's in the movie and why I went back to work. And
But even in the comic, what I was thinking, in the comics, you're, doing different adventures, and they're letting you run the project because it's your character, right?
pretty much,
Someone is.
the really good editors would let me run whatever I wanted to because they got good results.
Indeed, absolutely.
Archie Goodwin and I worked together for many, many years because he worked on the philosophy of ain't broke, don't try and fix it. And so that's why we did Dreadstar for 40 some odd, or at least 30 before Marvel stopped paying me. That's another story. But basically, they let me do Thanos. Nobody else wanted to do Thanos. He wasn't popular. He wasn't like he is now. He was a cult character. I think Dan Jurgens and John Romita used him once up before the Infinity Gauntlet. Afterwards, Mark Waid had to use him in a Kazar story because it was an X-Men character that they had in the story originally. They couldn't use the X-Men character, so Adam or one of the Kuberts had to redraw all the X-Men guys into Thanos. So it's Thanos versus Kazar, which I always thought was one side.
What do you guys think of the evolution, of the Guardians? Man, when they announced the Guardians movie, and I'm friendly with Quesada, I'm friendly with Brian Bendis, and they were part of the Marvel movie panel. And they're like, what are Guardians next? And I'm like, really? I'm like, is that a good, I'm like, God, I don't want this to be the movie that kills all the great success and everything. So yeah, what did you guys think when they are like, oh, we're, really getting into?
They started off with Iron Man. I mean, that seemed pretty weird.
Oh, well, yeah, right, and I understand, Jim, and you're right about that, because he really wasn't an alien. And God, they canceled him a couple times. They turned him into a kid, a teenager.
I don't think he was even, he had say he was sea-level character.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. But yeah, so no difference in terms of why not the Guardians or whatever?
Well, the Guardians had a nice run there for a while under Atlantis and Landy. Is that the name?
Yes.
I mean, that was a fairly successful book.
Evident Landing,
It actually made more sense than Iron Man. Because, not a lot of people in the general audience knew it, but a lot of folks had read those books, and Gunn was among them. So.
Fair enough.
But I'm with you. I thought, Guardians of the Galaxy, really?
Yeah.
And then it came out, and of course it was fantastic. Somebody on Facebook wrote today, when's the last time you saw a really good comedy, really laugh out loud comedy? Guardians of the Galaxy #1. You don't stop laughing. That's wonderful.
I thought it was original Guardians. I thought it was like.
Right, me too. At first I'm like, Vance Astro's going to be in a movie?
Then
Okay.
I thought those guys. Okay, yeah.
I was looking forward to the fat guy.
That's awesome. Sir?
What I was gonna ask is, as much as I loved Infinity War, one of the things I didn't get in it, and was that amazing cosmic fortress that Thanos had in the Infinity Gauntlet. Did you create it, or did both of you? I'm just curious, because that was amazing.
George designed that before I started drawing that.
Yeah, I think I gave there's stairs. I mean, we set up some parameters. There was a death head, but basically that was his design.
Jim, did you write Marvel style? There's always that talk
No, I
of
did
full script versus Marvel style.
I did full scripts on it.
Okay.
Somewhere along the line, I gave up on Marvel style.
And building on what Joe asked about death and how death became more womanly as you progressed, I also loved that character that Thanos creates, and I can't remember her name.
Taraxa.
Taraxa.
I always forget about her. People were bringing her up and reminding me. I forgot about that.
I did too. It was great to reread that.
It's kind of embarrassing. There's really a lot of misanthropic stuff in there.
But it is kind of this great jealous move, if you guys don't remember the story, where Thanos is just like, fine, Dad, the hell with you.
Yeah.
I'm omnipotent, I'll create my own love thing. She's great. And it really was this kind of, and I guess it was 90s and everything, but it really did feel like that kind of a Baywatch kind of, idealized.
I thought it was narcissism personified.
Absolutely.
I had an infant Nebula, so she got treated really badly on purpose because they said she's Thanos' daughter. And I went, he's never, my Thanos would have never had offspring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he says it. He's like, well, she says it's on Murphy, she's my daughter, so okay.
So I used her terribly in the story.
Very decomposed.
I think Gunn's done it even worse. And then looking back on it, it's a little embarrassing at this point. There's a little bit of sadism involved in that. But it is Thanos.
Are you doing a blow-up doll for Because haven't we all at some point made up our own love? Okay.
All right, now we're getting dangerous. Any, sir, right there.
So last week I was at the show in Boston and I went to the John Byrne panel.
I'm
One of the stories he talked about was that morning CB had reached out to him maybe for a project. Well, CB's here this weekend. Has he talked to you?
Me?
Yes, Jim.
I haven't talked to John Byrne in years.
No.
CB went to Byrne and said, hey, let's maybe try and do something new for Marvel. Has CB reached out, CB Spolsky, current editor-in-chief, reached out to you?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I don't, okay, I'm not his name now. Okay.
I'm doing a demo with it tomorrow. I can arrange an introduction.
No.
Sir.
I was just wondering, because you created Thanos and you said earlier that you loved Thanos himself when making him. What was your favorite storyline to put Thanos in and to really build on, what was your favorite story?
The Thanos quest.
Yeah.
He's never been nastier in that. That one had all the beats working right on it, and he did a terrific job drawing it. That's my favorite Thanos.
Yeah, same here. I love that stuff.
Right behind Death of Captain Marvel. That's my favorite story. Thanos comes right behind.
How about for the two of you guys, your favorite Marvel cosmic stories?
Well, Thanos was his favorite when I worked.
Well, okay, yeah, so, Joe.
Well, you mean to read or to work on?
Yeah.
Or
Well, I did the Infinity Gauntlet, and when it ended with him sitting there with his, his helmet off, going, this is cool.
Who has seen the Scarecrow at the end of the movie?
Yeah, that's all.
Who has seen it?
I didn't remember seeing the Scarecrow.
There's a scarecrow?
Oh, it's on the Blu-ray.
It's always there.
Yeah.
They kept saying, I went to the premiere and they went, what did you think of the Scarecrow? And I went,
What's good?
I didn't see it until the fourth viewing.
Yeah, I feel better then, because, yeah, I'm like, oh,
It's really tiny. The lower left-hand corner of the screen.
You know what?
The lower right.
Yeah.
All of Jim's cosmicness and, madness and craziness and shit. I think one of the things that separated Jim from all the people that was writing this stuff was Captain Marvel died of cancer.
Yeah.
He didn't die of Zap Bam. And when Adam Warlock died, and see in the annual, Jim asked to ink that page because obviously it meant something to you. It's like it was a chapter ending and it had some pathos to it. And Pip standing there with the frontal lobotomy and the blood running down his nose. It's like, it's like in Watchmen, Batman and all those people beat the hell out of everybody, but Rorschach goes and breaks the guy's finger. Ooh, that would hurt.
That's right.
So the fact that Jim keeps killing his people is very that could happen. Right. Blowing up Robin.
I'll say my things on Robin until sometime.
Yeah. No, so I think, Superman is not super unless the world he's walking in looks like it would be rough to beat up. It should be solid, and there should be a reality to why these people walk around. Because, superheroes are like weird, strange shut-ins. It's like we hang out the mansion until something happens so we can go save the world.
Sure.
It's like, shouldn't you have a hobby? Shouldn't you, do pitbull rescue or something?
I like that. Guys, I'm going to wrap up because we're getting close to the time to transition. But seriously, a great conversation, exceeded my expectations. Ron Lim, Jim Starlin, Joe Rubenstein.